Welcome to the CEC lecture series. You are with me, Surbhi Unyal, and I teach philosophy at Hansraj College, University of Delhi. Friends, this is a special lecture series under the symbolic expressions. And in this series, today we will be discussing Mīmāṃsa Philosophy, which basically is an extension of what we had discussed in the previous lectures. We have with us Miss Manisha, who will be interpreting my lecture in sign language. So let us begin our lecture. And we were discussing in the last lecture on Mīmāṃsa epistemology, where we discussed various Brahman accepted in the Mīmāṃsa philosophy. Continuing with that, today we will be talking about postulation or arthapatti. Prabhakar and Kumaral both admit arthapatti as an independent means of valid knowledge. It is presumption or postulation, or you can also call it as implication. Arthapatti is a combination of two words, namely arth and apatti. The term arth means facts and apatti means kalpana, which is understood as supposition in English. Thus, etymologically speaking, arthapatti is that knowledge which resolves the conflict between two facts. It entails a presupposition which solves the problem that occurred between the two facts. It is the assumption of an unperceived fact in order to reconcile two apparently inconsistent perceived facts. So, when a known fact can't be accounted without another fact, we have to postulate the existence of the third fact. The valid and the justified knowledge of this third fact is known as arthapatti. So what basically happens is that there are two facts that are there in front of us, but these two are inconsistent with each other. So in order to make sense of these two facts, we need to postulate a third fact, which then helps us in justifying the validity of these two facts which are inconsistent with each other. Let us try to understand it with the help of an example. So if Devdutt, suppose Devdutt is a person and this Devdutt is alive and he is not in his house. So we presume that he is elsewhere. So being alive and not being in the house are two perceived facts which appear to be inconsistent. So their apparent inconsistency is removed when we presume the fact of being elsewhere. So here let us reevaluate it once more. So suppose there is a person called Devdutt and this person is considered to be alive, but he is not in the house. So we know he is alive and he is not in the house. But these two things, that he being alive and not being in the house, these two are perceived fact, but they seem to be inconsistent with each other. That if he is alive, then where is he if he is not at home? So, in order to make sense of these two inconsistent facts, we presume the third fact that he must be elsewhere. So he must be somewhere else. Another such example is, let's say this Devdutt is a fat man by fasting in the day. In this proposition, we find two facts. One, Devdutt is a human being and alive, and he is fat. Second, he is not eating in the daytime. So in order to resolve this conflict, that is, how a person will be fat and not eating anything in the daytime, we postulate the existence of the third fact, that is, he must be eating in the night. So, here if you look at the example, there are two inconsistent facts here which are perceivable by us, which are that Devdutt is a fat man. Second, he observes fast in the day. So in the daytime, he does not eat anything. Still, he is a fat person. So when we observe these two facts, that he being fat and fasting in the day, we try to make sense of these two things. And in order to make sense of these two facts, we need to postulate a third fact, that he must be eating in the night. And that's why he is fat. Because he is not eating in the day, still he is fat. So we consider or we assume that he must be eating in the night. Therefore, if Devdutt is fat and he does not eat during the day, we presume that he must be eating during the night. Otherwise, the inconsistency between being fat and not eating during the day cannot be explained. So, such kind of problems or such kind of knowledge that we get from presuming the third fact, that is known as postulation or arthapatti. And Mīmāṃsakas, they are accepting this as a valid means of knowledge, where there are two inconsistent facts which are observable, yet they are inconsistent, so we need to assume or presume the third fact. So this is known as presumption. The next kind of praman is non-apprehension or anupalabdhi. Non-apprehension is the immediate knowledge of the non-existence of an object. An object doesn't exist in a particular place and a particular time, but it exists elsewhere. So to perceive the non-existent of that particular object in a given situation or place is known as anupalabdhi. So in this case, what's happening is that an object doesn't exist in a particular place and at a particular time, but it exists somewhere else. So now in order to perceive, so what's happening is we are really perceiving here the non-existence of a particular object in a given situation or at a given place, and this process is known as anupalabdhi. So Kumaril admits non-apprehension or anupalabdhi as the sixth independent praman, though Prabhakar rejects it. So it was accepted by Kumaril, but it was rejected by the Prabhakar as the valid means of knowledge. So non-perception or non-apprehension is the source of our immediate knowledge of non-existence of a thing. Suppose I say that a jar does not exist here. How? Only because I do not perceive it. And this is known as non-perception. That is, we should not conclude that all non-perceptions lead to the conclusion of non-existence of what is not perceived. We do not perceive a table in the dark, nor do we perceive such supersensible entities as atoms, ether or virtue, vice, etc. Yet, we do not judge them to be non-existent. So, we need to exclude certain things from here in order to avoid any kind of misconceptions that if we are saying that we do not perceive something does not mean that it's going to give us a knowledge of non-existence. As in the case of a table in the dark, nor do we perceive suprasensible entities as atoms or, as mentioned earlier, virtue or vice. So, we do not judge them to be non-existent, though we do not perceive them. Why? This is because if a thing should have been perceived under certain circumstances, only then it is non-perception under those circumstances and would give us the knowledge of non-existence of that entity. The supersensible entities are those that are beyond our senses. So we cannot say that they are non-existent when we do not see them. So in this kind of praman, what is important is to consider that when we are talking about the non-perception, it's the non-perception of the things which are earlier perceptible under the certain circumstances. But now, due to certain reasons or circumstances, they are not perceptible. And hence we can talk of their non-existence at that given situation or the circumstance. In contrast, those entities which are never perceptible, like the supersensible entities, since they are beyond our senses, so we cannot talk about their non-existence since we do not see them. So negation cannot be perceived, for there is no sense-object contact. Negation cannot be inferred, for the invariable concomitance is not known here. Negation cannot be known by testimony, nor there is no verbal cognition here, nor can it be known from comparison or presumption. Hence, negation, which is an independent category, is known by an independent praman called non-apprehension. So, we have seen that negation cannot be known by any other praman. You cannot know negation from perception, as it cannot be perceived, since in perception there has to be a sense-object contact, which is not really happening in the case of negation. So we cannot say that negation can, it can be perceived. It cannot be inferred, since we cannot establish invariable concomitance here. It can not be known with the help of testimony or verbal. It cannot have a verbal cognition. Neither it can be known from comparison or presumption. So, since it cannot be reduced to any other praman, it is then argued that negation is an independent category, and it is known by an independent praman called the non-apprehension. So non-apprehension basically helps us in knowing the negation. With this, we come to an end of the epistemology of Mīmāṃsakas. Let us now discuss the metaphysics of Mīmāṃsa. So Mīmāṃsa philosophy is a pluralistic realist. It believes in the reality of external world and of individual souls. There are innumerable individual souls, as many as there are living bodies, plus the body's liberated soul, bodiless liberated souls. There are also innumerable atoms and other eternal and infinite substances. And therefore, Mīmāṃsakas are considered to be pluralistic realists, since they believe in the multiplicity or innumerable individual souls. They view that the world is constituted of three types of elements. These are body, sense organs, and eternal things. The self in the body enjoys the fruits of its actions. Sense organs used as a means to experience pleasure and pain. External things are meant for enjoyment. Apart from all these realities, they also believe in many other realities like the existence of heaven or hell, etc., although these are not perceivable. Thus, Mīmāṃsakas are considered as pluralistic realists due to these innumerable entities that they are accepting, or innumerable, you can say, variety of realities that they are accepting, due to which we can say that they are pluralistic realists. They also believe in the law of karma, in unseen power, which is known as apurv, in heaven and hell. They also believe in liberation and in the ultimate authority of the eternal, authorless Ved. The Mīmāṃsakas, they agreed upon the view that the creation and the destruction of the world is based on our karmas. Hence, they ruled out the existence of God behind the creation of the world. So, for them, God is an unseen power who guides or instructs us to do certain karma in certain period or certain time. So basically we can say that Mīmāṃsakas, they agreed upon the view that this creation and even the destruction of the world, both of them are based on the law of karma or on our karma. And since they believe that the creation and destruction of the world is based on our karma, hence they ruled out or they negate the existence of God behind this creation of the world. And God for them is an unseen power who guides us and instructs us to do certain karmas in certain periods or certain time. So Mīmāṃsakas does not admit the periodic creation and dissolution of this world. The world was never created and never shall it be destroyed. Though individuals come and go, though the finite material products arise and they perish, yet the world, the universe as a whole, it goes on forever and uncreated or imperishable. So to say that or to talk about the creation and dissolution of the world in the periodic sense, that is not accepted by the Mīmāṃsakas. Why so? Because for them, this world was never created and they believe that it will never be destroyed. Though they consider that individuals, they will come, they will go, even the finite material products, they will arise, they will perish, yet the world, the universe as a whole, that will be there forever, that is and will be there forever. It is uncreated and it is imperishable. They also say that the souls are permanent, they are eternal substances, and so also are the material elements by the combination of which the world is made. So law of karma is thought sufficient to guide the formation of the world. And the world is composed of three things basically. The first is living bodies, wherein the soul reaps the consequences of their past deeds. So these living bodies are considered as the carrier in a sense, wherein the souls will reap the consequences of their past actions. Yet the soul as such, if you look at, as mentioned earlier, soul is something which is permanent, soul is eternal, or you can say soul is an eternal substance. And this soul, it lives in this living body and reaps the consequences of the actions that it had done in the past. The second is the sensory and the motor organs, that is the indriyas, which are instrument for suffering or enjoying those consequences. And the third is the object which constitutes the fruit to be suffered or enjoyed. And these are the three things you can say which are composed in the world, or the world is composed of these three things, including the living bodies wherein the soul reaps the consequences of the past action, the sensory and the motor organs, which are the instruments for suffering or enjoying those consequences, and then are the objects which constitute the fruits to be suffered or enjoyed. With this, we will end our lecture and we will continue this discussion in our next lecture. So, stay with us to follow up more on the Mīmāṃsakas metaphysics. Thank you.